Call to
Call
order.
the meeting to order.
It's 7:32. Thank you.
32, how about that? So I would suggest we take care of the business, the mundane business of minute meetings and our meeting minutes, and get that out of the way. If everyone's amenable to that. Julie sent out the rest of the minutes. Thank you. I know folks had a chance to look at them.
Yes.
You want to find anything?
I had no changes. Everything looks good, Julie.
Oh, thank you.
Do you want a motion stand on all, was it?
I would delight in a motion.
I moved to accept the minutes of April 17, March 31, March 24. And is that it, Julie?
No, there was March.
Oh, and then March 3 and March 8.
Yeah.
Okay. As
We
submitted.
were really busy in March.
You're
I
muted.
think
Julie.
there's even more than that.
No, there was
5, was there?
yeah.
There was 5, yeah.
2, 3.
So it was 3, it was
5,
3,
yep.
31, 24, and then April 7.
Mhm.
Did you say February 17th?
No.
Because that's in them too.
Oh, is it?
March 3rd.
And just to cause
March
confusion,
24th, March 8th.
there's 2 Februaries, the 17th and 24th, 2 in March, the 3rd and the 8th, and 1 in April, the 7th.
Right, that's what I
Thank
have.
you.
Thank you. Sorry, I had the wrong
Oh, it's okay.
month
I'll second Mary's motion.
as corrected.
As correct.
We're gonna take out the March 24, 31. We're gonna put in the February 17 and 24.
That's
Mhm.
fine. Second.
Any discussion on these? Hearing none, a roll call vote. Stan, aye.
Mary, I.
Jan and I.
Julie, I.
Scott, aye.
Sounds like it's practically anonymous. All righty. So I think I believe that the Sennies were in the audience, but did we have other business for tonight? We don't have any reserve fund transfers, right, Margaret?
No transfers, but I have been requested by June to ask the Finance Committee to schedule meetings for mid-May, mid-June, and July 14th to take care of any end of the year transfers. The mid-May one could be done probably right before one of the town meeting sessions. That should be fine.
Sorry, Margaret, is mid-May. It was July 14. And what was the other?
Mid-June.
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 Okay.
So you think, Margaret, if we scheduled the annual meetings at 7:30, or no, wait, does it start on
6:30 Monday
Saturday?
night.
Monday night?
Yep, and on Saturday it starts at 1 o'clock.
Right, so it's Saturday first and then Monday,
Right.
right?
The
So we
15th
could
and the
schedule a
17th.
meeting. What, Mayor?
Sorry, 15th and 17th are the dates.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, so we could schedule a meeting a half an hour before the one on the 15th.
Yes.
So
I
if
was
we
thinking
said,
the same thing, 12:30.
Yep.
yeah, so if we said 12:30 on the 15th,
Okay,
does that
12.
work for folks?
Yeah.
I'll
Yes.
post
So why don't
it for 12:30.
So why don't we plan on that? And then mid-June, Wednesday in mid-June would be what?
16th?
That sounds like that's about as mid-June as you get, right? So,
Pretty
Yeah,
close.
that would be,
there is.
yeah, that would be good for me because school gets out the 17th and I might be away the next the week after that, if, well, not for very long, so we could rearrange. It won't be gone for more than 2
Would-
days, so never mind, never
Would
mind.
it be hard for you? Would it be
16th
hard for
fine.
you for a meeting the night before school's out, though?
No, I'll have to be a good girl
No.
and stay good. Maybe the 17th. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay,
No,
well, why don't
that's
we,
fine. The
so how about if we
16th
say
is good.
June
Okay.
16th?
Do you want it at 7:30, Stan?
Sure, please. Please and thank you. And then she said July 14th.
July 14th.
Party. That's
All
still-
right. I will, yes, I will be around. I'm gone the last week in July, but the 14th should be fine.
7:30 still?
I would not be available that week.
Okay.
And I assume that she's picking that, Margaret, because it's right before deadline.
That's the
So-
actual end of year. That's the end, yes.
Right.
That would take care of any loose ends.
So in
Would the
theory,
week
we could do the
before?
7th and as needed if we had to get together, if something came up between the 7th and the 14th to, anyone else have any conflicts for the 7th?
July 7th.
Yeah,
As long as we're doing
I
Zoom,
would-
I'm okay.
yeah, okay. I mean, I would prefer to schedule it a day, if we're this far in advance, on a day that we know everyone can make it, and then adjust from there. So my preference would be to schedule it on the 7th rather than
Yep.
schedule it on the 14th, knowing Scott will not be there. And then if somebody, something else happens, and I mean, I know it's year end and we have to have stuff by then. And so clearly if something came in 9th, 10th, 11th, something like that, we'd have to deal with it.
Should we
I don't know.
schedule a 7 and a 14 and then cancel the 14 like on the 12th? Just to
Right.
have it so we don't have to worry about, just
I
in
mean, you
case
could-
something comes in.
Yeah, you could do that because, I mean, if we're still doing Zoom then, doesn't matter where I'm at. So normally I'd say definitely it says no, but I'm sure it would be a
Okay.
short meeting just for transfers and that. So you just
Yeah,
put it on
that's right.
paper and I'll know more details probably at that time I'll still be in the Eastern time zone.
I'm just thinking if something came up, we wouldn't have to like be scampering to try to get the date for the open meeting law and everything. If we just did them
Well,
all
right,
now.
so I mean, if Scott's willing to commit to that anyway, then is there any reason to have it on the 7th?
Well, the only thing I would not commit to exactly is my daughter's basketball schedule, and I not really want to travel where I'm traveling and then skip the game for this meeting. So I won't
Right.
really know that until right at that time, but exactly. I mean, worst case too
Well,
is, I mean, you do it
certainly-
without me if you have to go for that week. It could be
Yeah,
worse.
We should be okay. I mean, it only takes 3 for a quorum, so we'd probably be okay.
I say we
Yeah,
just
why don't,
schedule
Margaret,
the
could we
7
do
and 14, and then if we don't need it, we can
Yeah.
cancel it.
Right.
What do you think?
We
Am I-
can.
Not a good idea?
No, we can. The only thing just as a, not a policy or whatever, canceling meetings on short notice does disrupt some people who are, kind of planning on attending, but I can't even imagine who would be planning to attend a public finance committee meeting on July 7th or 14th. I mean, no one's going to be around. So why don't we just, if we could book both of those, Margaret, the 7th and the 14th, then we'll cancel as needed.
Can we put in the agenda on the 14th scheduled as emergency or something so people would know that potentially we're going to cancel it? That way you're being respectful for them.
Mhm.
I will put on the agenda.
Sure, I mean, we could,
Okay.
Or,
Okay,
or
go ahead,
even on the
Margaret.
7th, we're definitely meeting on the 7th. We can say at that meeting, we have a meeting scheduled for the 14th only for an emergency. If nothing comes up, we will be canceling it. I mean, I see where you, I know where you're coming from.
I'm going to post all of them now, and on the 14th, I'm going to put end of year transfers if needed. And that way
That's
it gives a heads up.
and I'm absolutely overthinking it, so don't get all caught up in making sure we're covering language and we'll be fine. Even if we cancel it the 13th, no one else is going to care. We'll be fine.
Yeah, the June one is actually the most important one. I've been there when we only had 4 members and the transfer station got shut down for the last week of June because of
Right.
lack of funds.
Right.
So that's the most important one that we at least have a quorum for.
Knock
Yeah.
on wood, we're doing okay so
And-
far.
Yeah, and we're fortunate that we have the 5 members. So even, you know, something comes up even with 2 of us, the other 3 should be able to deal with it.
And we have Margaret.
And we have Margaret.
I'll be here.
Yahoo. All right. So, having said that, and I know that the River Bridge Committee, you guys met with River Bridge this morning. There was some communication about that, but I would like to hear from the Sennies if they are in the audience to at least speak to what they know at this point about their petitions. I think we, as a committee, agreed that we don't necessarily have to have a recommendation about these, but we probably would have comments. So I'm thinking we should at least get to hear what they have to say at this point. And
All right, I'll promote
the-
both of them, Chris and Matt. Okay.
good evening, Chris.
Hi.
How are you?
Oh, good, thank you. How are all of
Good.
you?
Hi again,
Hang
Chris.
in there.
I see my brother's name. There's my
Yeah,
brother.
there he is.
Okay. Yes.
Hey, Matt.
Good evening, Matt. You're on mute unless you're choosing to be. So that's your call. Just letting you know.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I think if you guys were probably listening, I don't know that we're going to necessarily have a formal vote from finance on petition, since we don't necessarily have an exact kind of dollar amount. I think what we kind of decided was that it's hard for us to have a vote as a finance committee when it's really more language as opposed to, you know, material dollars that we can directly translate. But if you guys could address a little bit about what you're thinking with these, I mean, or there maybe even been some talk about amending, or I don't know what's happening at town meeting. So if you guys could tell us what's on your mind with these amendments,
Sure.
or petitions, I should say.
Thank you for having us on your agenda. We'd be happy to give you an update and just talk generally about the 5.
Yeah, I mean, right. It doesn't have to be in great detail. It would be nice to know what you're, just kind of the state of where you guys are and what you're thinking.
Sure. Well, we have 5 articles on the warrant for the May
Mhm.
town meeting. We're told that our articles won't be reached until Monday evening, the 17th.
Right.
And 2 of the articles have to do with the parcel of land we call Lot 9B, which is right along the east side of River Road West between the cafe and the daycare center. That's a 3.7 acre parcel that we have site plan approval for further retail and have not had luck over the past few years attracting either restaurants or medical or retail. We do have that
And
property.
excuse me one second, Chris. That includes the old liquor store there, right?
Yes.
That's on that parcel.
Yes. There are 2 structures on Lot 9B that will be removed. One is the old liquor store and the other is a small white building that had been
Yeah.
used by the Risi family for residential purposes.
Okay. Sorry, go
So
ahead.
that's the parcel. As you know, it's right in the heart of River Bridge. It ought to be a very attractive parcel for retail use, but even before COVID hit, online shopping was changing the dynamics of retail, and we do have an awful lot of empty retail space within 2.5 miles of our site, and that was the case before COVID. And so we don't know when we would be able to attract retail users to the site. We've listed that property with 2 different outfits, and we just have not been able to attract users. It's very important to Riverbridge to find a good productive use of that site. Financially, it's difficult for us to not have found a user yet. Also, we run this community water system, which is a public water supply and wastewater treatment plant. And that is getting much healthier now that the apartments are getting occupied and the hotel occupancy is strengthening. But we do need a good water user on that site as well to make this not-for-profit owners association managed water district break even. Over the past few years, the Senni family has had to loan significant dollars to we call it TRA. It's the Riverbridge Association, Inc. And it's just been very difficult because everything was delayed. And so until you get people using the water, you don't have the ability to charge. And it has been wonderful over the past 6 months to watch the water usage and the sales from our associations to its members grow from 5,000 gallons a day to 16,000 gallons a day. That was what we provided and charged for from March 23rd to April 23rd. So it's really strengthening, and that's really wonderful for our project. We do have—
What's the capacity for that, Chris?
Well, we have
What's the
permits.
capacity?
Yeah, we have permits from the DEP. It's 2 different permits, one to provide a public drinking water system and the other to discharge into the ground after treating effluent. And both of those permits allow us 66,000 gallons a day. So out of our 4 bedrock wells on the open space, we can take 66,000 gallons a day, distribute it around the site, use it, treat it, and put it back in the 4 leach fields. But DEP makes you over-design your system. So according to the Title V allocations for each of our U's, we would not be able to use more than half of that. And we project that when Riverbridge is fully built out, we'll be up at about 35 or 38,000 gallons a day.
So you're a little less than half, right?
Yes, yes. But
Okay.
it's strengthening impressively. The apartments are actually using less water per day than our business model showed initially. I think the newer faucets are very conservative in terms of the water that gets used. And so the gallons per day per apartment or per person is less than we had projected. But there's also a seasonality, and we haven't seen the apartments go through the summer months yet. So it'll be interesting to see the water use over the warmer months.
Do you have
So
a
What's your
break-even
occupancy
number
in the apartments?
for gallons?
Oh, sorry,
Oh,
Scott.
sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering if you have a break-even number for a number of gallons
Well,
usage.
I don't know if I can tell you the exact break-even point, but if we got to 30,000 gallons a day, it would be more than enough. The high 20s would probably be break even for us. Now, keep in mind that the members have to make TRA's balance sheet balance. So in addition to paying for their water and sewer use, they pay a common charge fee like you would in a condominium. And what we did when the Senni family didn't have more money to lend to TRA, we began to issue special assessments. And in 2020, between the hotel, the apartments, and the Sennis, we had $86,000 worth of special assessments that were paid and received and helped balance our budget. In 2021, while we're waiting for a good use on Lot 9B and for the apartments to really be fully occupied, we'll have another special assessment that will be about the same. So the members have to make TRA balance. And of course, the water and sewer services are essential to the hotel and the apartments and the cafe and the daycare center. So we are a not-for-profit. We have a board of directors. There are 3 members of the board. Our hotel partner, Fred Rodell, is on the board. I'm on the board for Riverbridge, and Alex Stathos, who represents the apartment, sits on the board. And we've been operating as a board now for almost 2 years, and we make all the decisions about how this water district runs. Was there a second question?
I was asking what's your occupancy on the apartments at this point?
I can give you occupancy as of April 13th. So it's about 2 weeks old, but that's the latest report I have. On the 13th, the leasing office said they are 81% occupied, which is 165 out of 204, and 89% leased, which is 182 under lease. So it's nearing completion. Their budget shows 93% occupancy as complete. So we're getting very, very close. They expect a 7% vacancy as units turn over. So we're getting very close to fully occupied.
Okay.
So what happened to us is that we had companies approach us about using Lot 9B for townhomes, a different kind of housing, smaller 2-story townhomes. And we have an article that would allow the planning board at site plan review to convert retail space that would have otherwise gone there to up to 30 townhomes. We've encountered a strong headwind on this. We have brought a lot of housing to the town already. We have begun to have discussions with the planning board and the subcommittee we met with this morning about tapering that back to 18 and using part of Lot 9B for retail. Again, it's important to us to get a good, strong user there, a good water use, and financially it allows us to complete all of our obligations to the town. We don't know if the town voters are going to approve this or not. If they don't, we will go, right back to the drawing boards and keep working on other possible uses. The property is under contract, but that contract is contingent on what happens May 17th. If the vote is no, that contract will go out of existence. And if it's yes, then that buyer would purchase that property and develop the townhomes. So we have asked for real consideration here. We are still under the number of bedrooms that were initially approved in 2009, even at 30 townhomes. At 18 townhomes, it would be fewer bedrooms still. And these would be for sale. They would be small. And so they would offer a housing stock in town that could be purchased for less than what it costs to buy a single family home. So we understand, we've heard the resistance to this idea of further housing, and that's why we're considering modifying the proposal down. But at this point, that's what's queued up for the town meeting. I have checked with Barry Eager about modifying, a motion to modify a citizen's petition. And that is possible as long as he rules that the modification stays within the realm of the noticed article. And I've promised to get him all of our possible floor motions well in advance of town meeting. So one motion might be to change the number from 30 to 18 in the 2 warrant articles that have to do with the townhomes. We have, interrupt me at any time, we have an article that represents a request to rezone or to make a change in the village overlay zoning district to allow 2 drive-up windows for food establishments. Presently, our overlay zone does not allow drive-up windows for food establishments. It does for banks and pharmacies, but not food. And we have attempted this in the past and this has failed. The main concerns expressed by voters when it has failed is garbage being distributed out of car windows and a loss of a sense of community by being able to go into the establishment and see others and say hello to your neighbors. We thought that perhaps COVID has maybe changed things a little bit, and we're right now preparing a study of what the traffic queues would look like at both the Noria gas station with Dunkin' Donuts and the cafe building that we own right at the entrance to River Bridge. So we'll be back in front of the planning board on May 11th with more information about that. And we're hoping the voters will at least consider modifying our overlay zone to allow 2 drive-up windows at the existing restaurants. We have a warrant article asking the voters if they will authorize the select board to petition the state to allow Berlin to have a 3rd full liquor store license. You may know that we used to have a full liquor license at that old liquor store. We sold that and put the money into the waterworks. And that did cause a drop in our business, considerable drop. But at that point, we were looking for the funds to build the treatment plant and the public water supply. So we're asking the voters if they would authorize the select board to ask for a 3rd license. And then we have a warrant that has 4 subparts to it, which could be voted on individually. And that addresses 4 things we might want modified in the development agreement we have with the town. The first has to do with our mitigation payments. As you know, we owe the town $100,000 a year for 5 years for public safety mitigation. We are behind in making our first payment. It was due November 1st of 2020. We are arranging to make a 1/3 of that first payment before town meeting. We are disappointed that we haven't been able to make that first payment. Our problems are partly related to COVID, the financial impacts of loss of revenue related to that, and partly due to the fact that, in a real estate development, often, the last parcel is what provides the cash flow to really finish the project. And we just have not had success with placing lot 9B. But we will make that 1/3 payment before town meeting. And if we are given the approval to have the 2 drive-up windows and the liquor license, it would enhance the cafe building at 3 Bassett Road considerably. And we're already talking with a new bank about refinancing our properties if we are successful. So even if lot 9 didn't sell, a refinancing of the 3 Senni properties, our family owns 3 buildings at Riverbridge still. We don't have an interest in the apartments. We have a 35% interest in the hotel, and we own the gas station, the daycare center, and the cafe building. If we refinanced, that would help us make these mitigation payments. So what we suggested in this development agreement article is that we tie the full payment of that $500,000 to any sale of lot 9B or any part of it. It would all be due at once. And we asked for an additional 2 years to find a buyer for lot 9B or refinance so that we can make those payments. The second part has to do with River Run. You may know that the town has an option to buy a part of River Run for $1. That option expires later this year. So the second of these 4 subparts of this article would give the town an extra 4 years to exercise that option. Also, at River Run, there are 2 developable areas. Each could hold a building. One is zoned residential and could hold a single family home. That would be near the Spooky World property, which is part of River Run. And the other is up near the existing parking lot at River Run that could accommodate a 20,000 square foot a building, and that is zoned limited business. And what we proposed, because we owe further obligations to the town, is that we change our development agreement to make it so that the town can own both of those as further mitigation. Now, either one of those is probably worth 200,000 and maybe worth a little bit more. I'm not sure. So we've tried to be creative in thinking how can we substitute something we can give the town where we're looking for relief from some of our obligations. The third of those four is offering an easement to the Assabet River across the property owned by the Riverbridge Association, Inc. The town owns the meadow across from Spooky World, which it bought a few years ago for open space. And that meadow is very close to the Assabet River and the spot where we have now built a modest canoe launch, which can be used by the town of Berlin or the apartments. And so we wanted to offer an easement so that if the town ever decided to install a road into this area or a picnic area or parking area, members of the town community could put a kayak or a canoe in the river, and that is a navigable portion of the river. In fact, the apartments have used that canoe launch and the path leading to the Assabet River as a marketing tool to do well in the apartment market. So this is not covered in our development agreement, but it's something that we could do for the town. And the fourth piece is a general authorization that the select board can modify the development agreement in small ways in which the board feels it is a benefit to the town. For example, at one point, we were told there might be a desire to put a communications tower down at either Riverbridge or River Run. We could, if this fourth one passes, we could offer an easement and the select board could accept that and record it on the land records. And there may be other things, but that provision also says that it can't alter, let me see what it says. The select board may at any time within 1 year of the approval of this article agree to and incorporate into any modification of the agreement any other terms it determines are beneficial to the town, including accepting deeds to other easements as might benefit the town, so long as such further terms do not grant any new material rights to Riverbridge. So you may know that the development agreement, any major modification requires town meeting approval. It already says that minor changes don't. The select board can do that. Here, since we know there may be some small beneficial items, I put this fourth part of the development agreement article. And those can be voted on at town meeting individually. So if the town wanted to accept the canoe launch easement and the extra 4 years to exercise the option at River Run and have 2 lots instead of 1, those 2 of the 4 could be accepted. So, and we do have our eyes on some other aspects that we have discussed with the town and the committee that has been formed to negotiate with us on the development agreement. But we all felt that we should put some of those off until the fall town meeting. So we limited the spring town meeting to those 4 items in the development agreement.
You got a lot going on.
It is a lot. Yeah, it is a lot.
Do we have any questions or comments from the board?
I actually had one question or just some clarification. Back in the original agreement, mentioned in 2009 that the number of bedrooms in that one would still be larger than what this proposal is with the 30 townhomes. Now, the original proposal, that was including assisted living, right?
Yes, it was still 204 dwelling units, but 90 of them were apartments and 115, I'm sorry, 115 were apartments and 90 was to be either a CCRC, continuing care retirement community, or assisted living facility. And along the way, as we did not attract either of those types of senior housing, we modified the development agreement at town meeting to give the planning board the authority to convert those 90 from senior to regular apartments, which was approved at town meeting, and then the planning board did do that. But that allowed, initially we had 410 bedrooms allowed. That's the 204 total dwellings times 2 bedrooms.
Did you have more on that, Scott, or were you?
That was it. No, you gave the details that I was going to ask for next, so that's fine.
Okay.
Thanks.
So I guess my question on that, Chris, is I know you said you did not attract, I mean, this is back in history now, but I mean, you did not attract anyone for that retirement slash the C, what is it? C, what are the initials again? CC?
CRC.
C, what is it?
CCRC, Continuing
CCRC.
Care Retirement Community.
Right. What is the big development in Hudson right there at the intersection of 85 and the connector to the highway? What type of assisted living is that, or what type of is that?
Yeah, I think my brother can answer that because we had some guests at the hotel from that facility. Matt, can you describe that?
It's called the Artisan at Hudson. It is gorgeous. It is exactly what we wanted to build. They were one of many, many groups that we approached. There wasn't a CCRC or assisted living developer type in the whole country that we didn't reach out to over our first 5 or 6 years to try to attract. One of the bigger arguments is we were too far from Boston. We were too close to Worcester, which had some assisted living style programs. There was the Willows in Westboro. We just,
Right.
you know, there was no stone unturned. And as we went after these various businesses and tried to bring them to our community.
Is that larger there than they would have been able to?
Go ahead, Stan.
I was gonna say, is that larger there or smaller than they would have been able to do with us? Or do you have an idea of why that went in and it didn't, why your property did not appeal to them?
Well, it's a pretty good location. It's very close to the community of Hudson. It's right off major highways, as we are. It's a little bit further removed from Worcester. And it's also 6 or 7 years later in the design program. Back in 2012, a group called Emerson was a builder of these CCRCs, and they went belly up, and it virtually ground to a halt the building of the CCRCs that we envisioned. But the CCRC that we envisioned, if you go on the website for the Hudson property, is pretty close to exactly what we wanted to bring to our village, but we couldn't. There's nobody who didn't say no to us. We had people out at this place. We would go back to them 2-3 times a year later. You know, it was our biggest promise to the town. It was our biggest disappointment at the time. And Emerson ground the financing of these projects with any bank. Banks stayed away from this for years because the Emerson situation where they just bellied up on developers all over the country.
Yeah, I mean, I think I have to say, I mean, for me, I don't know, personally, I mean, certainly not as the finance chair, but for me personally, I think it would be so much more palatable to be talking about residences on 9B if that had been a long-term care and it wasn't just turning all into residences, but yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What is and then there's also something going in up on Highland Street too, right? Isn't there another?
Chris, you want me or you?
You probably know a little bit more about who bought that property and is developing it.
I believe it was the Swain Farm, and it's 66 senior homes. I've looked at their other properties. I've met with the owner, the developer group over there. They'll come in at about 600,000. It's a huge development over a vast area, and you have to, I believe it's a 55 and over.
Mhm.
They will fill a niche need that we were not trying to fill with our
Okay.
30 or 18. We're first-time homeowner buyers. It's you can't bring your children back to this community, or you can't downsize in this community for less than $600,000. And we were proposing townhomes that would serve a niche into this community that isn't here today. And you don't have to build 60 of them because we've already brought all the utilities and subbed them right to the property line, which makes it attractive for a small town, small development. Normally, using the same Swain property, they had to build that road and bring all those structures up. And basically, they had to build, I want to say 66, but it might be 90. They had to build a lot of units just to get their costs back out, which is something we don't have to do at Riverbridge. We're just trying to finish Riverbridge and tighten it up so that when you drive through our community, it looks like a finished product to the left or to the right. It all
Right.
benefits us greatly, and we have a lot of obligations to the community that will help us in getting to this. Frankly, over a decade, the landscape changed, but one thing didn't change. I went to work every day, and I talked to every retail developer, every supermarket, any type of business, medical. I shooed people away. I shooed marijuana people away 9 years ago before it was popular. I mean, there were people that wanted to come here. There were car type places that wanted to come here and wanted me to go, plead with the boards to make changes. I mean, we wanted to build a great, pleasing development, and we're almost there. We're proud of what we've built. And we've also, because this is the finance committee, we've also been a very good taxpayer for the town. We've been paying money, we've been paying taxes for 11 years. The hotel is obviously a huge tax generator to the community. And obviously the apartments and all of the other small businesses. And if we hadn't come along and they had just built 4 or 5 or 6 three-family homes, there's a lot of money that wouldn't have gotten into the town coffers that Riverbridge has brought to the table. And I don't share that. Mary's been to many meetings with me, and I never say that, but I'm in front of the finance committee tonight, so I'd share that a little bit.
I wanted
Okay.
to, sorry, Stan, were you done with that
No,
question?
go ahead.
I want to follow up on Scott's question. What's the break even on the water system? I didn't follow that answer. Or maybe Scott's question also wasn't entirely clear. And the question and the answer, I wanted to revisit that and just see understand what was said.
We bill at Northborough rates. So the town around Berlin that charges the most for water and sewer is Northborough. And we told our members that we are going to charge the same rates. And as Northborough increases their rates, so do we. And I don't know exactly, but I would say we need to hit 26 or 27,000 gallons a day in order to be break even.
What does break even mean?
Break even means that with the normal amount of common charges, which are not water and sewer, but just the other payments that each member makes to run the Riverbridge Village, we would cover all of the expenses if we are able to sell to our members, provide to our members 26,000 gallons of water a day. It means that we cover we make our small association balance without a special assessment. When we fall short, which we have, as we haven't been fully built out, we've been after the Sennies lent money for a number of years, and we are looking to be paid back that sometime in the future, but that's way down the road. After we couldn't do that anymore, the members began to make these special assessments. So what I mean is we're at 16,500 gallons a day right now. That's gonna grow as the apartments finish getting occupied and we get in and we get to see the whole year. It will balance out because the summer months really do go up. Even at the gas station and the cafe, the water usage goes up in the warmer months. But lot 9B is slated for 4,000 gallons a day.
Yeah,
And
okay, so let me get back to my question, Chris, because I feel like I keep losing the train here somehow. So the assessed fee for the water sewer charges, this notion of break even at 27,000 gallons a day. Are you saying that break even point does not include the outstanding loans? What are you saying?
Is that just
includes
operating
being-
costs? Yeah.
Being able to service the debt that we have on the waterworks, that's included.
The debt on the waterworks is included. Okay. So when you get to that steady state point, that sort of break even point, when are you paid out? When are you done with when is the association done with its obligation to Sennies for the loans?
Well, the loans from the Sennies carry 2% interest, are subordinate to the bank debt that we have on the waterworks, which we have with Northern Bank and Trust Company. We have a loan to the Riverbridge Association, Inc. And so there's going to be long-term debt, like many water districts have, for many, many years. And the formula that we have talked with our members about is that the Sennies can't get any of their money back out until what we call the debt service coverage ratio is at 1.3 or higher. And so it's probably 4 or 5 years before the Sennies would see any of that money.
And the fees are going where currently?
Where does the money go that comes in?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it costs about $150,000 a year to manage these plants. We have
Right.
to hire a management company for each plant. We have to pay for the removal of biosolids. We have to pay for monthly tests of our water system with the DEP. The electricity alone is $30,000 a year. We pay real estate taxes on the TRA parcels. So there's an operating budget for TRA that costs a considerable amount of money just to run this not-for-profit association. And the biggest part of that is the waterworks. Actually, the insurance is about $50,000 a year for TRA. We have Northbrook and the Assabet River nearby, and we're treating effluent and putting it into 4 leach fields. So you have to buy pollution insurance and insurance to protect the members in case something goes wrong with the waterworks. That's an enormous amount of money. So when we collect common charges from our members and when they pay their waterworks, it goes into our account and we pay to operate the Riverbridge Association, Inc.
And we is who?
We are the members of that association. So when we started Riverbridge, we created something called the Declaration of Covenants, Conditions, and Restrictions. And we recorded that on the land records. And that has certain covenants that the DEP and their lawyers wrote into it. And everybody who buys property at Riverbridge buys subject to that declaration.
Sorry, let me restate my question, Chris, because I'm not getting an answer to it. Who actually day-to-day operates? Who is taking in the money, paying the bills? Who does that? What person or entity does that? The coming in money, going out bills.
Sure,
Who does it?
sure. We have a board of directors. I'm the president of that association. We have a bookkeeper, Darlene Coy. All of the funds that are paid by our members come into my office. They go into an account at TD Bank, and then Darlene writes checks and pays the bills that TRA has. TRA has its own tax return. We filed the tax return every year since we've been operating. And it's its own entity. And one day it will have nothing to do with the Sennies. It will just be owned by whoever owns the properties at Riverbridge.
Okay. And so we're thinking that we're at a break-even point with respect to these costs, which includes debt service, yeah?
Yes.
We think we're at a break-even point pretty soon because we're now, what are we supplying? How many gallons a day are we supplying now again?
16,500.
16. Okay.
Now the
So
additional.
as the hotel ramps up and as usage ramps up with the apartments for the summertime, you're thinking, because you're only expecting 4,000 out of 9B. So you'd be expecting 22 to 25 out of all of the entities that are up and running when they're fully running. Sounds like to me.
Right. The hotel is at about half of what it was before COVID hit. It still has not recovered. So before COVID, the hotel was at about 4,500 gallons a day. And on some months it was over 5,000 gallons a day, depending on occupancy at the hotel. It dropped down to 2,000 gallons a day during the worst months of COVID, and it's been slowly building back up. This past month, I think it was 3,700 gallons a day. We also have a pad in front of the hotel that is site plan for a 5,000 square foot building. If we could attract a restaurant there, that would be a good user. And lot 9B has slotted to it 4,000 gallons a day that we hope to place.
Okay.
So there's still a pad. There's one more pad. Then there's still another parcel on the hotel side.
Yes, in front of the hotel, there's a small parcel, and that is site plan approved for a 5,000 square foot retail building or retail or restaurant building.
So Chris, then the one other question on the operation of this association, this nonprofit, is the special assessments, the one that happened before and the one that's going to happen. Do those assessments kind of get paid off the top of whatever revenues are coming in? How does that work? Or is that not coming from the water authority? Where's that coming from?
Members pay that. The members are obligated to pay any special assessment TRA must issue to break even. So because our waterworks isn't covering enough of the waterworks expenses, our members make up that difference.
But they pay it to Sennies individually?
TRA.
They pay that just the same way they pay their waterworks or their common charges. They pay that to the Riverbridge Association, Inc.
Okay, which is the water district. Yeah.
Well, the Riverbridge Association, Inc. owns about 89 acres of land at Riverbridge, all of the open space and the two parcels that have most of the water infrastructure, the treatment plant and the pump building. And so TRA owns all of that land, manages it, and the biggest job and the biggest cost is managing the waterworks.
Thank you.
Janet, did you have anything specific for the Sennies?
No, I've been listening to all the other meetings they've been attending. I too am a little disappointed that the CCRC didn't go through. That was, I thought, was a huge plus for the community, and it is a little disheartening, and I could tell in Matt's voice that the other places now have them. I know there was a big one that went up in Maynard as well, and I know the one in Worcester added on. So it is a little disheartening that we couldn't have one in our community. That's kind of how I feel, but
Yeah.
it is.
And Julie, I don't see you on video, but you're not muted. Are you, do you have anything?
Let me see if I can get the video back.
Well, you don't have to be. I'm just,
I just had my, like, you know, it flips off and it's easier to take it off than get kicked off. No, I don't have any. Well, I have one. It's a small one. When you were talking about the drive-throughs, you put that in for both locations. And I was just more curious if, I have no idea what's going to happen at town meeting, but if you can only get one of them at one of the locations, would that be enough, or do you absolutely need both for your, what you're anticipating would help?
We would like to have one at both Noria and the cafe. If we were to get reduced to one, it would have to go to Noria, because under our lease with Noria, we promised them that we would never seek a drive-up window unless they had one too. So they have sort of first dibs on a drive-up window. So
Okay.
if the town meeting amended our warrant and said only one, it would be at Noria.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question about the liquor license. You said you sold the first one and that was to pay towards getting the waterworks up and running. Is that correct?
Well, it was part of the money that got the waterworks built and up and running. But yes, all that money went into the waterworks. Waterworks is very hard to finance. So we took some tie-in fees as we went along, and we put our own money in, but also we didn't really want to sell the liquor license, but a company kept offering to buy it, and they were offering an amount that just seemed too hard to turn down. And that happened to correspond with the time that we didn't know how to get the rest of the money put together for the waterworks. So we sold it and we applied for a beer and wine license, which we've had. And I can tell you that Matt's been operating liquor stores since we inherited that in 2010 when we closed. And his sales dropped by half without the full liquor license.
And so you envision that, so that just makes the part, that just makes, what does that actually do for you revenue wise to have the liquor license? So that's just on properties that you guys would still be owning, so it enhances the revenue for you on those properties? Is that, or is this an incentive to something else coming in to be able to sell them on the part, like, because you'd be using it in the both properties that you own, right?
We would not change anything in our cafe building except that Berlin Liquors on the right side of our building as you walk in would then have hard liquor as well as the wine and beer. That would, I don't know if it would, how long it would take for Matt to double the sales at that facility, but they were cut in half when we gave up that license at the old location. And that would enhance the value of that building, which again gives us certain flexibility in terms of being able to refinance and take care of the rest of our obligations. So it is a benefit. This one can't be used anywhere but at Riverbridge. That's what the article says. So it could be transferred, but it could not be sold to go somewhere else.
And the second one would be at Noria?
No, there's only one liquor license.
The second one in use?
Oh, no, the
I'm sorry.
drive up,
Okay.
the drive up article
Two
has
drive-ups.
two.
It's
Yeah.
2 drive-ups, 1 liquor license.
Two
Yeah,
drive-ups,
got it.
one
Okay.
liquor license.
Yep, gotcha. Okay, well, I mean, I feel like I know where you guys are coming from. I appreciate your time. Unless, does anyone else have any further questions or comments? Margaret?
Yeah, I want to thank Chris and Matt for coming to the meeting tonight to talk with you. I also, with respect to the development agreement, I just also want to reiterate that the subgroup that met with the Sennies, the town subgroup that met with the Sennies this morning, we all decided that right after town meeting, we do have to start meeting again because there are other financial obligations in that agreement, besides the $100,000 that need to be met, either the infrastructure upgrades. There is the other, the CCRC payment. I know you've talked about that already. So there are other financial obligations that we really do need to work on to resolve. So I just wanted to bring that up.
Margaret, can you reiterate who is on the subcommittee?
Mary from your finance committee, Chris Keefe from the select board, Chief Galvin and Chief Clark, and myself.
Okay.
I guess I do
Alrighty.
have, I have one last question, Stan. I apologize. It just went
That's
through
fine.
my head as Margaret was going down that list. And I'd ask, Chris and Matt, we got a lot of focus on this parcel 9B and developing it as an avenue to satisfying financial obligations to the town under the development agreement. What other assets in Riverbridge are available to do that kind of satisfaction of the financial obligations? Have you considered that possibility?
Well, we own 3 buildings and those have a mortgage. It's 3 different loans, but those mortgages total $7 million. We're having those reappraised right now. I don't know if there's equity there, but we're looking at that. We expect those appraisals to come in the next 2 weeks. It's possible that we could refinance our properties, but we just don't know how appraisals are going to look right now. And we just don't know, but there's debt on those 3 properties, considerable debt. We do own River Run, and there we have one of the 2 developable parcels that we could sell or develop. So that's some equity there. We originally owned a 50% share of the hotel that actually comes with that pad site that's in front of the hotel. That's part of the hotel venture. But our hotel partners had to put in more capital than was planned to finish the hotel and get it open and then to weather the shortfall when COVID hit. So our share has, we don't have this actually quantified right now, but the way our joint venture agreement works, as they bring more money, we have to suffer a reduction in our share. When that pain is completely absorbed, we'll have a meeting with our partners and we'll agree on what has our share shrunk to. So we have some equity in the hotel. It will be a long time before there are any distributions out of the hotel, but one day that should have some value. And those are our only properties. Lot 9B is our asset, but we've had trouble finding a taker for that. And so we own 35% of the hotel. We own 3 properties that have a big debt component on them, and we own River Run.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess my follow-up to that would be so the idea is that if you're selling 9B, that would allow you to make your full payment. Because I guess what I'm struggling with is how did you envision originally that these out of what proceeds did you envision these payments to be made from, and what has changed?
We envisioned using Lot 9B to either do a build to suit for a tenant and owning the property but having a tenant there, or selling Lot 9B to someone who wanted to build their own structure or structures there. And that doing either of those would have created the cash flow that could have allowed us to service our $500,000 mitigation payment. Also, when we built the cafe, we expected that to have higher revenues than it's had. So we expected to be able to just have more cash flow. In fact, Riverbridge by this time was supposed to be strong enough to be making distributions to the 4 partners. There are 2 other partners who are our sisters, and they haven't received a dime from Riverbridge. There have been no distributions. So it's just performed more poorly than we had envisioned.
Okay. And then I guess the follow-up to that would be, Margaret, you had said that there were 2. So the other financial obligations on this are what after the mitigation? Or besides the mitigation, I should say?
So, well, there is a provision in the agreement that provided that Riverbridge shall provide its own private ambulance service, both
Right. Okay.
basic and advanced. So that's one that we need to work through because that hasn't,
Yeah.
that's very unlikely to happen. The next is the River Road West Bridge, widening the deck, adding a pedestrian and bicycle bridge, adding sidewalks and upgrading existing sidewalks for public safety. And, it was noted today by Chief Galvin that this is already, that's already a public safety issue because of the increasing occupancy at the apartments. So that's something that's got to be taken care of. But we'll, we're talking with Chris and Matt about the agreement allows for cash payment and equitable payment to be made in lieu of actually having the developers do the construction on these assets. So that's another big one.
Because I think you had originally said a CCRC payment. So you were referring to the
that is a payment that exists in the agreement. That is a payment that was meant to be paid if, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, if the CCRC was built. But then one of the modifications then further specified that even if the CCRC was not built, Riverbridge would still be responsible to pay the $51,200 a year as the base payment escalated by the consumer price index thereafter. So that's another obligation that's in there. That does not come due until, I don't have it in front of me, but I think it's November of 2022.
I can explain a bit further, Stan. When we first approached the town about this overlay district, we had we had a fiscal impact analysis done in 2009.
Okay.
And we thought of Riverbridge as being having 3 parts: commercial, residential, and the senior component. And what the fiscal impact analysis indicated is that the residential is a negative, the commercial is a break even, and the senior is a positive, because they concluded that when you're comparing tax revenues and all revenues with municipal costs of all kinds, the senior component is more favorable. The residential is least favorable, mostly because of school impact.
Schools, sure.
Commercial is about a break even. And at that time, there was a chart in that study which showed that if you didn't build the CCRC, it would cause Riverbridge to go from a net neutral to negative $51,200 a year. So we wrote into the development agreement that if we don't build the senior component, we would pay that difference. Now, what's changed is that we did an update to that study in 2013, and then we did another one in 2020. And this one you have, and this is showing that given what we have brought, the apartments, the hotel, the cafe, the daycare center, it is very, very likely that we will be cash positive, actually to a pretty considerable extent, even without a senior component. And so in light of that fiscal impact study update, which was paid by us but commissioned by the select board, we're asking to be relieved from that. Sometimes we call it the senior tax.
Excuse me, Chris, I just want to clarify, that was commissioned by the planning board.
Oh, okay. And so we have this update, and it's showing, it depends there are two scenarios in this update. One is Lot 9B as retail, and the other is Lot 9B as 30 townhomes. And there's also 3 levels of cost. If you assume high municipal costs, it's got 1 net difference. If it's the middle level, it's another. And if it's low cost, it's a third. But in all of those cases, either scenario, any of the 3 cost levels, we're positive. And in terms of the financial cost, the school impact of that update was 27 school children on average. And we're now 85% or 89% leased and 81% occupied as of April 13th. And we've generated far fewer school children. So I think we're going to be at that lower municipal cost level. And if you look at that one, the most favorable, it's $258,000 a year positive if you put retail on Lot 9B, and $301,000 a year positive if you put the townhomes. Now we're probably not talking about 30 townhomes anymore. We're maybe talking about 18. So you would sort of bring those 2 numbers closer together. But in any event, it looks like Riverbridge, the hotel pays a room tax only to the town of 6.25%. The value of the buildings that we have built is higher than what we projected. So on balance, Riverbridge is a net cash positive every year to a considerable extent. And that's why we feel there's a basis to ask the town, can we be relieved of that extra tax? But that's not on the warrant for this spring. That's what we and this subcommittee are talking about as we get ready for the next town meeting.
Yeah, I just want to push back a little bit on that, Chris, because, we're speculating on what the population of those apartments is going to look like next year or the year after. We have no way of knowing that. And we know from dealing with school budget, all it takes is 1 or 2 school children who are in that special needs category, and there goes your budget. So I think it's real speculation to land on this idea that somehow the costs are off, and I've looked at that fiscal impact study, and there really isn't that much of a difference in the couple of scenarios that were run. So we're, I think as a group, we try to get to the hard numbers, and then talking about uses like this it's pretty hard to get to the hard number on where we're going with it. And I just picked up email, and I guess there are taxes unpaid by the hotel currently due, real estate taxes to the town. I don't know if they're real estate. I just had a couple of messages come in on this.
There are, the hotel does owe back taxes.
Thank you. Yeah, okay.
A little over $200,000.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't know that. And Matt and I will talk to our hotel partners, right? I mean, we don't pay those because the hotel is managed by our partners. And I didn't know that. I don't think Matt knew that. So we'll talk to Fred and David Rodell right away.
I'm glad I could give you a little relief, Chris. I'm not talking about anything. This is the people across the street.
I did not know that. And, we try very hard to pay our taxes. And, I will say that when this is going back a long way, but the Reese family was paying $53,000 a year total in taxes on the buildings that were there and the farmland. The farm was in 61A. But, significant dollars are being generated. We do appreciate that both fire and police have added costs. The town hall does in general administration, and the school too. I agree, Mary. We need to shake out more the population, but that's why we're not trying to decide this now. By the time we go to a winter town meeting, we probably will have a pretty good feel for what Riverbridge is going to cost in terms of school costs.
Yep. Yeah, thank you. Yeah. I just I thought I'd put it. It came in, so I just thought I'd say it. I think
I'm glad you did. I'm calling Fred tomorrow morning. Fred, you're killing us here.
People sent me these numbers.
Fred.
Well, people sent me these numbers, I guess, because they knew that we'd all be in conversation here. So there it is.
Margaret?
Just to touch on the school enrollment piece. So the school district uses October enrollment numbers for their future year's funding. So by October, hopefully this is all going to align where the apartments will be fully occupied and the school will be drawing their enrollment numbers from that complex. So we should have a clear picture.
We should have a pretty good picture by then.
Okay. All right, well, if that's all from folks.
We'll have a
Yes.
picture of enrollment
Sure.
of students, but unfortunately, we won't have a picture of what each student will need in the area of education. And like Mary said,
Yeah.
no child left behind. So, you could have one student that potentially could cost our district hundreds of thousands of dollars. And as a nurse and as a school nurse, I see those costs. And, you always want the best for your children because they are our future. So with that said, you could have one student down there or 10 students, and one student could cost as much as the 9 did. So that's a hard, you can flush out the numbers, but you're not going to be able to flush out the cost for the student, unfortunately. And that's going to change as people move in and out, as we all know.
Right, which you're certainly more subject to that with the more residential bedrooms you have. So whether they're occupied at this moment
That's right.
by those folks or down the road by those folks. So it's an argument for not, having more residences there. But that's also for the town to decide.
The other thing that is, I think, helpful to keep in mind is that by zoning the apartments to where we zoned them and built them, we got the town up above the 10% subsidized housing inventory number by a lot. I think the town is at 15 or 16% of its housing stock qualifies on the state's list as subsidized housing. And so the town is no longer in danger of unfriendly 40B projects that can be put wherever a developer chooses to put them, even in the more residential parts of town. And when we came to Riverbridge, we canceled an already approved comprehensive permit at River Run and promised never to build housing there. And that had 32 single-family homes, small ones, but 32 single-family homes. 26 of them were 3-bedroom. So actually, the school children we are going to create is likely lower than what we thought, but also it's less than what would have come to River Run had that project gone forward. So this was, when we did this back in 2009, it was planning to try to place this in one location that we thought was a good one for the town to protect the rest of the town.
I forget what was the percentage we were at? Do you recall? I know it was part of all those studies. I forget what.
We were close. You got close to 10% even without Riverbridge. You were up above 9%. But when you're at 9% or 9.5% or even over 10, you're vulnerable to possibly slipping below at just the wrong time, and a developer comes in. And your town has actually seen, I think, 3 or 4 40Bs. With the apartments, you got credit for 84 of those apartments as affordable housing, and that bumps you up high enough that you're really secure on this. And so that's just something to keep in mind. I know that the apartments is a big project, but it was something that we planned out this way.
All righty. Well, I know I, for one, am the only reason you got my vote on that was because it's not subjecting us to 40B anymore. So thank you.
Well, thank you for letting us come and meet with you. We really appreciate that. If there are any questions that come up after we leave the meeting, you can email me at any time. And Mary, if you would like more information on TRA, I can send you more information about how that association works and And just let me know what else you might need and I'll send it along.
Well, if it's something handy that is digestible, I'd love to look at it, yeah.
Okay.
I wouldn't ask you to jump through hoops, but if you've got something that's
No,
accessible.
I know way more about water and sewer than I ever wanted to or thought I would know. So I have a lot of information at hand and I'm happy to share it with you.
Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much for having us here.
Good night.
Bye now. Thank you all.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks,
Bye,
Bye,
Matt.
Chris. Alrighty. What else do we got, folks?
We got a little good news from the school, I guess, on the refinancing, Tohoto refinancing.
Yep.
That I was happy to see that, and I don't know whether that means that you change budget numbers at town. How do you do that for the budget numbers at town meeting? I don't know how you, yeah. Because it's printed, it's published, right?
Yes, you'd have revenues that exceed expenditures. Of course, there would have to be an amendment made to that line item. So the reduction there for the Tohoto capital assessment is $16,831.
Yeah.
The other reference Bob made to the Tohoto operating assessment was already reflected in our budget sheet.
Yes.
So in fact, it's off by $10 and I have to contact him because I use the numbers that he previously gave us. So I want to make sure that our number is accurate and correct. So
Yeah, yeah.
And the 16,000 is our share.
16,000 is the savings on the debt refinance, 16,831.
Right, but on the Berlin share.
For Berlin ship.
Yes, for Berlin.
Yes,
Mhm.
okay.
So tomorrow night is coffee talk, and are you all going to be able to make it? Stan, are you going to be? Mary, are you going to be there? Anybody?
I have two conflicts tomorrow evening. There's no way I can get near it.
I'm gonna try to make it.
I was planning on being there.
Okay, because
I will definitely be there for the first part of it. It starts at 6 or 6:30.
6:30. Yeah.
Yeah. I do have work I need to leave at 7:30, but I mean, I was going to take the night off when no one else was able to attend. I'd rather not take the night off if I can help it. So if Scott and Janet were able to be there, then I would feel like if I participated for the first part of it, I hope that would be acceptable.
That is perfectly acceptable. So Scott and Janet, if you're, if you're willing to give kind of 1,000-foot view of the operating budget this year.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I
see
could even.
That's gonna be Scott that's gonna do that.
That's fine.
Okay. The night's going to start with Barry giving a brief overview about town meeting and the various things, the new handheld voting devices and things like that.
Okay.
Then it's going to move into a half an hour for the wetlands bylaw, then a half an hour for planning board's articles, and then we'll move into.
Oh, right. Okay.
Okay, so the budget will be
So,
later on.
It will.
Okay.
Yeah. So what is your comfort level with that, Scott and or Janet?
Fine. I'm fine with it.
I'll
That's
just follow
what we
Scott's
leveraged the introductory letter, that was put in. I forget what the term we used for it, but
Our report,
Fine.
you mean?
yeah, the report.
Or
That is the best piece.
oh, there you go. Okay.
Back in the days when Clinton Item used to care about us too, the press would call us and all I would do is give them the report, go, there you go.
There's your
That's the
press release
fact.
right there.
Yes,
Yeah.
I didn't want to speak
Yeah.
with them, have any other quotes that are coming out of my mouth that were not accurate. I had, everything was written down and so made it simple.
All right. Well, then I feel better than if I'm not presenting that I at least had a hand in that. So, all right, good. So I guess Margaret, logistically, I mean, we probably, I think we need to discuss it because we can't discuss board business outside of board meetings. So how do we come up with, it's not recommendation, but how do we come up with comments about the citizens petition based on information we got from the Sennies? And do we schedule another meeting, and do we draft a letter? Do we just, or is this just something we should get up and speak at town meeting? What are your thoughts on what finance should be doing about this?
I do think that the finance committee should vet any kind of statement that comes from the finance committee. Otherwise, you know, I would probably suggest that it come from an individual. So if there is a member of the finance committee who wants to draft something.
Mary, I'm sorry, what? I didn't hear you, but go ahead.
Oh. You're going to be meeting.
Oh, look at that.
So,
Lucky,
so the finance committee could review and edit that if needed during the half hour prior to the May 15th town meeting session. So we could put that on for that.
Does that give us enough time, do you think? Should we make that meeting an hour before instead of a half an hour?
Well, you know how we might speed it up with and still be appropriate in our public meeting laws
Right.
and so on. If Margaret, you had a summary this morning that was on one page, and if there's nothing on that page that you think is confidential, if you could give that page to the finance committee, then when we sit down on the 15th of May, everybody will have a chance to look at those key points. I think it'll be helpful. And
the table, Mary?
Yes, your one-page summary of the development agreement and the paragraphs that have the financial impact for the town. And then this little draft, I just put into English the key points that are on Margaret's summary. So, you know, we could look at what's written down here and edit it. I can bring my laptop and change it if we need to, that kind of thing. So on the May 15th meeting. And I think, you know, the other thing we'll know by May 15 is where the planning board's coming out on some of this.
Yeah, I mean, that was our hope, right? That was our hope for tonight, was that.
Yeah. And it's premature to do it. The thing is, the thing keeps evolving.
Right.
And so, you know, just this morning, I learned for the first time, you know, there's a plan to pay a third of that payment that was due last November. There's a plan to reduce the number of townhouses. And so it's like, well, that's a lot of change to those 5 articles, right?
Mm-hmm.
But so it's really hard for us to collectively land on something until you know what it is that's being proposed. And we will know that by the time of the town meeting on the 15th, we'll know that. And I think that's not too late to decide, A, not to comment or to comment. And if we comment, to follow the summary points that have been drawn out of the development agreement.
Okay.
You
So
know,
are we able to review those electronically as a committee outside of a meeting? Is that allowable?
You can individually review them, sure. I just sent them to you, actually.
Okay.
you know, I feel almost the more and more I go to the wetlands meetings, I'm learning more and more about how that may actually impact our town finances.
Oh.
Well, there was a person that spoke last week that said that they'll definitely need a clerk to manage what they're proposing, because there's going to be a lot of paperwork that, you know, basically a volunteer is not. Correct me if I'm wrong, Margaret, but so that's an impact that we're going to have to think about. And then there's the other impact that, you know, I hear through these is if, you know, we do the bylaws and somebody wants to appeal it, now that's going to impact finances from the town. And then there was, well, all the money was going to be charged to the person that was going to do the filing. And now the other night they said that the town was going to take on some of that financial burden. And I'm like, well, what is it? I mean, it's just like every time something new comes up and I'm like, I'm learning something as we go along, and it's getting very confusing, and it's not as simple as, you know, we're adding a bylaw. There's also a bunch, I didn't know this either, regulations that the conservation board can make after the bylaw, and depending on who's on boards and things. I mean, there's a lot to it that I think that is not as clear and cut. I mean, that it's not going to be a financial impact for the town. And I know we voted a neutral because we didn't think, but I mean, I don't know. The more and more I hear it, it may be a financial burden. And I don't know enough about it yet. Do you know what I mean? Because every time we have a meeting, I learn something new.
One thing I would be considering, I mean, something to start thinking about is how can some of these funds that are becoming to the conservation, I mean, basically all these like the community preservation stuff, all these other mitigation payments related to open lands could be used to fund the costs for the people that need to do this work on these things instead of it coming from general tax revenues.
So all right, so first a couple of things, and I'm certain that I can't address everything, but the statute that's referred to in that proposed wetlands bylaw, chapter 44, section 53G, I believe it is for consultant fees. This is the same statute that the Zoning Board of Appeals uses in their special permit and site plan review processes, where consultants are required to give fees to the town. The town must hold them in escrow, and then the town is able to pay for their own consultants from the fees paid to the town. And if there are any funds remaining at the end of the project, the town is required to return those funds to the applicant. So to the extent that there are cost impacts to the town, you know, there's administration, you know, there's you know, where to put those funds, how to allocate those funds and things like that. So that's one little piece. The other is, all right, so as far as CPA goes, CPA is not allowed to fund staffing in order to support boards and committees. So CPA is not a fund that would be able to be used for that. However, the Wetlands Fund or the Open Space Fund could potentially be used, but both of those are kind of finite funding sources. You know, they're subject to whatever's put into them. They're not recurring funding sources, but those potentially could be used to fund those things. So Janet, I know this is a long roundabout answer, but and I'm unclear too, but those are the few financial aspects that I am aware of on this.
Can I say something? John came and talked to us. I'm sorry, I'm blurry on this, February or March. And we did have a long discussion and I know you talked to him. Did you follow up on that, Mary? Because
yeah, I did. I talked to him and I edited down his job description and then talked to him afterwards about how to position it and how I thought, you know, where I saw the value and so on. And yeah, I mean, he made a pretty compelling case because the town has to comply with these wetland bylaws that are, you know, wetland laws in the Massachusetts. And what the issue, I don't want to get into merits, but to Janet's point here, that I think to properly carry out the process that's being proposed in the article, the wetland bylaws, I think you really need a professional, because what we have is an appointed commission of people who are volunteers, and the experience might be really good with one, or knowledge and experience and work habits and stuff might be really good with one volunteer, and then they go off the commission and somebody else. So you have this unpredictable set of people. Everybody's well-meaning, everybody's doing the best they can, but it's a little bit like bringing Margaret into the town and all of a sudden things start making sense because this is somebody that understands how things work and where the limits are. You can do this, you can't do that. And we need that because we're all volunteers. We're not, you know, so we need that expertise. And the question I have about the article coming up in May is, we putting the cart before the horse. And I'd rather see that part-time conservation agent in place and then take a look at these bylaws, because then we can predict what would happen if somebody was going to get fined, or if, you know, we'd have a much better sense of fairness about it, and consistency, and much less of more of an apolitical process, which I think is really critical in this area. So,
Yeah.
but you know, there is that financial impact, and you know, Janet's right. I don't think you can do what's proposed in the bylaws without at least a part-time employee to carry it out. And not at the not at the, you know, clerical administrative level, but really at the level of understanding the laws and what you're looking at when you look at a project coming in for permitting.
Mary,
I
you
do
got
wanna
a little broken up and I didn't get half of what you said. I'm gonna shut my video off, and if you could just like repeat some of that, because my internet's so unstable, I apologize.
Okay, I'm sorry, I may be getting a little afield here, but my view is that what's being proposed in these bylaws, the article, would really operate well if we already had a part-time conservation agent in place in the town, because the process that needs to be carried out in the new bylaws, you know, we have the hearings, we can assess fines, there's a lot of powers and that go to the Conservation Commission here. But the commission presently is composed of appointed volunteers, and their level of expertise and their abilities around applying and enforcing wetlands is not going to be consistent year to year, and that isn't good for the town. So we really, I think, we have the cart in front of the horse to look at these bylaws now, when we have an appointed and not necessarily trained and educated commission, and different levels of commitments. I mean, some people have very demanding jobs. When I was working as traveling internationally, I could not commit. You know, people would ask me to do things. I say one committee at a time, and you're lucky to get me at that. So I really think that what we're looking at will require an employee of some kind to do it appropriately. And then I think the town will get itself in trouble if it doesn't do it appropriately. So if you vote in these powers and they're misused, we're in trouble.
I was going to say though,
Oh, I'm sorry.
oh no, I just want to say when I brought this up though, is because from what John had been describing, I kind of realized that whether it actually, I know they have the wetlands thing coming up, but even without that, it's already sounding like
they need it.
We can't.
Yeah.
You can't even like tie it to the wetlands thing. They are this is something that we are going to have to get and do, and they're gonna. I mean, it's not. If we don't get it today, it's not going to go away. No,
I absolutely agree, Julie. I don't know if this is a matter for FinCom, except that Janet brought it up and saying, gee, we voted on this, and
we did vote. And that's another thing. We just said neutrality, and yet at many of the meetings, they say, oh, well, this committee's in favor of it and this committee's in favor of it, but no committee has taken a vote. So it's just, you know, their interpretation of how the committees they've been to have received them. And that's where I'm concerned, because I do think you're right, Mary, where we're kind of putting the, you know, we're putting this out there with no one to run it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I also think that the important thing to say about it, our neutrality, is that it's impossible for us to determine a cost, which is why it's not that we're necessarily neutral on the concept of it, or that we're yeah, I mean, Mary's nodding because she knows what I'm trying to say, but I can't say it. I mean, it's just that, you know, it's not that we don't have an opinion, it's that we don't have concrete information to go forward with. So
we cannot ascertain the financial impact of those.
Yeah, Right. So it's not like we just think that it itself is neutral. It's we're neutral because we can't ascertain, it's not that we feel that this is revenue neutral. It's that we don't know what it could be. And there's definitely a distinction there. And I think as long as we make that clear, then I think that's kind of Janet, I think that kind of addresses what you're saying as far as like that we voted on it or that we've.
Right. Well, they said we didn't vote on it, but they said it came across like it was just going to be like a wash. And I don't think any of us thought it was going to be a wash. I think we all thought we really can't comment because we really don't know what it's going to be.
Okay, then we definitely need to clarify that at
a whole
town meeting.
different kettle of fish, as in we're neutral, meaning we didn't have one say or another versus we don't all have all the information to make
exactly. Yes.
Determination. And I think that's two completely different statements if you're
really
following
is.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think, Janet, certainly as a citizen, any of us can speak to that we think there will be a cost impact on the town. There's no reason why you can't as a citizen, but I think I'm completely with Stan on where we landed as a committee.
No, I understand that and I agree with that, but I don't think that
they are looking at it that way.
When they speak about our committee, it's not coming across to the community that way is how we all felt, if that's making sense.
So Janet, if that sort of communication is done at town meeting, I suppose this committee can get up and correct it.
Right. I think
Yes.
that's the only reason I bring it up is I think we need to realize that.
Yep.
If I could just clarify something that I said before about CPA. CPA will not fund staffing except for administrative costs for the Community Preservation Committee. So I just want to make sure that I'm clear on that.
Okay.
Just its internal costs.
Its own administrative costs, yes.
So where would that money come from to pay for this position out of our general budget? And do we have any idea of how much one of these potential part-time, full-time? I also wonder about, other things that might come with it other than just the actual administrative things. Well, it's,
Well, I mean, it could be a clerk. It could be clerk and an agent. I mean, it might not even necessarily be a combined thing. It might necessitate two different things depending on how intensive it is.
Well, that was one of the things I counseled John. Is it appeared to me in his list of tasks, some of them were clearly clerical, and some of them required the specialized knowledge of what to do.
Right. So now you're looking at two different things, neither of which is, volunteer conservation commission board. One of them is a highly skilled, licensed kind of person. And another one is a clerical paid, staffer who is clearly, is doing the grunt work of a committee that, that
one
needs to
be be $15 or $20 an hour, and another could be 80 to 100.
Sure. Absolutely.
I'm looking to see. I thought John had given us some information about.
He did.
He had sent us. We had I don't have my hands on it, but it was several pages that he had written up of all the tasks that they need done.
Yeah, but I can't remember.
Didn't have dollars to it, or didn't have hours associated with it.
I roughly remember it was I think it was 19 hours at 35,000. Does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds vaguely familiar, but I think it must have been back in February.
Yeah, well, right. It was to keep it under the 20, I think, and I'm not so sure that we actually calculated or that they calculated to be 19 hours worth of work. I think it was let's keep it under the 20 and see what we can get done. But
yeah, I found my note. He said that this 19-hour position typically would cost $25 to $30 an hour, and or about 25,000 a year to the town. It would be general operating, I assume, and that you could offset about 20% of the cost with permitting and fees.
Okay,
So,
but again, that's clerical. That's not this interpretive reading of wetland bylaws and enforcement type person either.
yeah, actually it is.
Oh, it is. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
But of course, I mean, this is John's assessment, and what he brought us in the position description was part clerical, part
Okay.
skills, right? Well, not,
Okay.
I shouldn't say skill, but part wetland knowledgeable.
Okay.
And then they say, well, we're going to have these fees and fines, but we really don't want to fine anybody. So, I mean, that was said the other night. I'm like, okay, well, you're not going to fine people. Where are you going to get the money to cover the fees? You know what I'm trying to say? It's like it's like every time I listen to Tim talk, I learn a new piece of knowledge, and I think, I just don't even know where to go. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't think they have it all together yet either, which makes it hard for when you ask a question to get a concrete answer.
I think they have don't they have an in-person this weekend, Sunday?
Yeah, Sunday.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you know where that's going to be, Julie?
The BMS out by the gazebo. I think that's what I read on a handmade poster outside of Balance Rock Farm.
At the school?
I think that's what I saw on the poster.
I think it's going to be at the gazebo at South Commons.
Yeah.
That's what I understand.
Okay.
Do you have a time on that?
I want to say noon or 2. For some reason, there's a 2 in it. Oh, wait a minute. I have it in my phone, I think.
I won't be there. It's my birthday and I'll probably be out in the woods somewhere.
Happy
birthday.
birthday.
Happy birthday, Margaret. Wow.
Woohoo! Another birthday. All right, let's see.
We won't ask
years
any more
young.
information.
Right, 29 years young.
Birthday,
It says 2 p.m.
yeah, I thought it had a 2 in it. Yeah. Yep, I got 2 as well in my book, in my calendar.
and it is at the gazebo.
Yep, 34 South Street, and it's on the conservation website, because that's when I go to it.
Mhm.
Information for meeting Conservation Commission Sunday, May 2nd at 2 p.m. And it's at 34 South Street, South Common Gazebo. It's on My Town Government, Berlin.
Yeah, thank you. We keeping you awake, Stan?
Barely, and I do need to wrap this up.
Okay. So just to backtrack for a second, so we did have, did we have to do anything about this evening? Or are we just gonna wait until the next meeting
For minutes?
for the, no, I know I can have the minutes for you for the next meeting, but to have, when we were talking about the statement about the wetlands.
About
were we just-
wetlands, I think we can just say, I think I as chairman can get up at the annual town meeting and say, because Barry will ask what the finance, or he will read the motion, whatever, and then he tells, usually he asks for finance's comments right off the bat. So
Okay,
at that point, I mean, I don't know if it's published. I'd be honest, I haven't read it. Is it published in there that we have no opinion? Or is there just nothing in there about finance, period?
There's nothing in there right
Nothing.
now with the article.
Okay, so there's no information. So Barry will absolutely ask the committee, have we taken any action, or do we have an opinion on it? And that's where I will be very comfortable getting up and saying, we are neutral for lack of information, whatever. I'll say it much better then. But
yeah, you will be brilliant by then,
I'm
yeah.
telling you, I can feel it already. It's
I
percolating,
can see it, I can
It's
visualize it.
bubbling, it's fermenting, it's all that. Of course, that could be the dinner, but yeah, so yeah, I mean, I think we just address it at that point.
Okay.
As far as the River Bridge thing goes, Margaret was gonna send out her
I
one-page
saw emails
synopsis.
from Margaret.
Yeah.
I sent it. Mhm.
Okay.
And Mary, are you able to send out what you had there for that draft,
I'm gonna,
or is that?
no, I think I'm gonna recommend it because we need to deliberate in public and I don't feel right about that. Margaret gave us just information. That's why I
Okay.
asked, is there anything in there that is
Right,
confidential?
and that's my concern too, as far as trying to deliberate and how do we act on things and how do we follow meeting laws.
Yeah, I mean, I can bring what I've written down to when we meet and then we'll know what the articles are gonna actually be.
Right.
We're gonna know if Sunny's made any payment on the $100,000 obligation.
Yeah.
So we'll know those things at that point. And then, as I said, if somebody didn't like my draft, you could scribble out something on a piece of paper and get up and read it. But I mean, collectively as a
Right.
committee, I think we need to be in
So,
some consensus about a comment.
I agree. And Margaret, I'm sorry, what did you have down for our agenda for that night, for that meeting of the town?
I do not have anything for your agenda at the moment. What would you like on your agenda? Review
I'm
that?
sorry, I thought we had said that it would be basically the same agenda. I thought we had said that the agenda was, or were we talking about the June one and the July one? I think we were talking about the June one and the
The
July one.
last one.
Oh,
The
so-
last one in July.
Yeah, the one thing would be any end of year appropriation transfers or reserve fund
Right.
transfers, but we could add the.
So, I
review.
mean, I think that the May one would say act on any reserve fund transfers. I mean, I think that's just kind of a normal one. But then I think we probably should say, I don't know, help me out here.
Review recommendations, review and finalize recommendations, or review statements, whatever you'd like.
Review ATM matters.
Mhm.
Right. I mean, should we just be broad in general and not say that that we would be talking specifically about River Bridge, or do we? Or
I
should we
would
put-
leave it, we should keep it general. I think it's easier.
Well,
And
it's
other
easier, but
things-
is it legitimate? I mean, I
And
want to
other
make
things
sure
might
that
come
we're.
up.
Thank you.
We'll put review any ATM matters, any and
Okay.
all.
So then that brings up the logistics of that meeting as do we, so if we're reviewing what Margaret has sent out, then there are other pieces of information that have come in as far as maybe what planning board has said, or if the Sennies are actively that we know that they're actively going to change something, should we be acting on something at that point, or does that give us what we have just said? Does that give us the ability to act on that? Like, do we need to have anything specific about it, or is that enough?
No, because frankly, that's all unknown, Stan. I think review any and all ATM matters would cover that.
Okay, and then while we're there, if there is something that we would want to vote on or whatever, then we just decide to do it at the time.
You can do that as long as it's an ATM matter.
Oh,
And-
right.
Mhm.
And is the half hour going to be enough?
Yeah, so I guess I'm also kind of getting back to that. Do we feel like that half an hour is enough?
I can go ahead and post you for 12 noon if you'd like.
Probably a good idea, Margaret.
Okay.
Yeah, but I agree, but aren't we meeting a little bit aren't we meeting before then? We have a couple more meetings, don't we?
No. For what?
Why did I think I had it on my calendar that we were
Because you just
meeting?
love to have meetings, that's all.
Indeed. Not unless June calls us in and says, I need your signatures.
But even that, June was recommending this one, so she wasn't recommending anything before now.
Yeah.
We had this one to talk about River Bridge.
Mhm.
If we had planning board, I think this one was specifically was to kind of discuss this
Yeah.
after planning board had met. So we
Yeah.
don't have those answers, and we didn't even know the Sennies wanted to talk to us until, today. So I don't think we had anything between.
I don't know. I guess I just had it that we did. So we're gonna meet on the 15th at noon. Is that now correct?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know, I thought we were meeting one other Wednesday before the 15th. Sorry.
I haven't posted anything for you.
Right.
So,
Before we sign off, I have one other question that's unrelated to what you've been talking about.
Well, then let's go for it. I don't
Okay.
think, or do we have?
I just want to see, just going from past history, I know one of the things in the past, people would oftentimes want the question on regarding the increase in the budget. I mean, because you have just like raw levy numbers. People usually want to know what's the impact on their direct
Right.
property tax bill.
Right.
Know how much per $100,000 or that stuff. I know in the past that was kind of a summary in our budget. Of course, back then we only had one tax rate, so it
Oh,
was a
yeah.
little easier to do. What do we have any ideas of numbers for that today?
we're not going to have a tax rate set till September. That's when the tax rate's usually set. So, Scott, I'm going to send you out a tax calculator that DLS puts out. However, it's not for the coming year, but it'll help people kind of get a sense of how much responsibility they have in tax payments. So I can send you the calculator. I don't know if it'll help, but
Okay, yeah, that'd be good.
okay.
So I was just looking out there and trying to remember how we calculated numbers in the past. But said with the one tax rate also made it easier.
I'll send
What
it.
do you-
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that we have a guarantee. Sorry, go ahead, Jamie.
No, that's all. Go ahead, Stan.
Well, it's never guaranteed, but it's a kind
No,
of
no,
a broad, right? I mean, it gives them paint some picture for it.
Mhm.
Otherwise,
Well-
if they look and said, oh, the total levy increases by X number of $100,000, what does that mean to them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we can comfortably say that we've said it should only go up 2.5%. I mean, we have stated that as our number from the taxpayer, and we're in balance. So I think that we can state to them that it should only be the 2.5%, and that the only reason it would be more is because we have the ability under the levy limit, and if some other revenue fell short.
Well, that's what I was just going to say. If we have a shortage of a revenue, that whole thing could go out the window. And I know that we
Sure.
were all disappointed last year when we
Right.
saw our taxes, and we really tried hard this year to not. I mean, I can remember Mike just sitting there shaking his head saying, I thought we did a better job so people's taxes weren't going to go up as much as they did.
Mhm.
And I think Stan and myself were just as surprised. I don't remember. I think we were all surprised as a general in the committee. And I think this go round, we really tried hard not to let that happen again. Am I misremembering that? Or
No, but I think the other thing you need to keep in mind is that we now have this done not through a laptop of volunteer committee members, but through a more formal process of creating a budget. I'm trying to be politically correct here, and I'm going to leave it at that. I feel like we hit our number last year for a reason, and I feel comfortable in stating that we would hit our number this year for the same reason, that there's not going to be other financial surprises other than things outside our control. Whereas I think before it was through the budget process, not through revenue shortfalls. Does that make any sense?
Mhm.
I don't want to belabor the point, but I think I sent you the graphs and the snapshot from the DLS dashboard. So it's really important to note here, especially when you look at the valuations by class, the valuations are increasing on the residential side and decreasing on the commercial side. So when we look at the overall tax levy, who's going to be absorbing more? So we have to be really cognizant of that.
No. Okay. Yep.
Mhm.
So even though we're saying that 2.5% is coming from taxpayers, that's a blended of both residential and commercial.
It is.
So
Yep.
so Scott, that will make it harder to give them a number for.
Right.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah, I know it's even in the past. I mean, we still had to deal with that. It was always just,
Right.
you have to make some assumptions of things being static. and go from there. And yes, we know that some things are shifting around, and especially with the commercial being down.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some broad categorical things that, like I as chairman could say, as far as what we just pretty much just what we just said here is that, we've tried to keep it at 2.5, but that 2.5 is made up of 75% residential, 25% commercial, and those percentages are probably changing because of the current environment, and that makes for it could make for a larger increase on personal tax bills than it would on commercial. And so, yeah, I mean, and I think, but I also think that gets, stated with our, stated goal of level funding a lot of things, and, making people aware that we're, that we are being extremely cost conscious as well, and doing the best that we can in this environment. And I think you preface it with that, and you say that we've specifically tried to keep the number to the 2.5, even though it could have been more, given our levy limit. And we can't. There's nothing we can do about that valuation mixture, except let it fall out where it does. And that's just we don't really have control over that.
Right. Was it this past years was the first year of the community preservation on it, or is this the second year? It was the first year, right?
Yep.
Last year was the first. Yeah.
I just remember, I don't do Facebook, but my wife sees it, and I saw the explosion when people got their tax bills and what.
Sure, and that
I know that really blew people away.
Yes, it was a double whammy. There was
That was a double whammy.
Problems
Yes.
There was problems with the budget and how it was generated, and there was problems with the fact that CPA kicked in. So it was two separate things.
Should I be looking at Facebook?
Probably not. It'll only depress you.
I'm not on any.
Yeah, I don't use it at all, but I'll just get comments from people that what's going on in town. Everything I hear on it, it's like, I'm glad I'm not on it.
I just think life's pretty short. I'm not sure I can fit it in.
I've been trying to get the nerve to delete my account. Then I go on
Rip
and
the
I start
Band-Aid
looking
off.
at everything, and then
Rip the Band-Aid
half
off,
a day
do
is
it.
gone.
Stick
I
with
picked
us.
up for
Stick,
Lent 2 years ago, and I
Ah.
went back.
Oh, wow. I'm sorry, you said Mary?
stick with us. We'll help you.
Yeah, I don't have time to get on Facebook now. I have to do FinCom.
Yeah.
For
Alrighty.
town meeting, you should all have the most up-to-date fund balance and use of funds spreadsheet. That's in your drive. So
Yep.
just a little handy reference sheet.
Are we
Yeah.
going to have access to electricity down there? Because I'm really saving the trees. I have not printed anything,
I haven't either.
and I just keep going back to my drive. But if I bring my phone or my laptop or my iPad and
Make
I
sure
don't-
it's fully charged.
yeah, well, it won't last. I can tell you right now, it won't
It
last
won't.
for 4 hours. Not with all of the what's going on. So I'm asking, is there a power source? I'm just
There is definitely a power
Well,
source
sure.
somewhere,
It
but I
could be
remember,
speaker and
I remember a lot of cords last year, so
No.
I don't know where the power source
bring
is.
my own extension cord.
Just
Very
have a
long
well-charged
extension.
battery on your laptop.
Oh, it just doesn't seem to be lasting. All right.
well, they also have those portable batteries too. But yep. Alrighty.
Motion to adjourn.
Atta girl. I thought you'd
I
bail me
wouldn't
out on that
ever
one.
let you down, my friend.
Good job, Janet. All right, thanks all.